Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
50s were nice, but they are slipping away, and it is going to be downright frigid tonight.
A man shot and killed here on Detroit's west side, and neighbors say this is a case of domestic violence. You'll hear from them on Local 4.
All right, Coco, but first, a 14-year-old boy shot, and police say his 10-year-old brother pulled the trigger. Now the father of those boys is in police custody. Several new developments in what has turned into yet another tragedy involving children and guns.
Shooting happened around 8 o'clock last night at this home on Fence Street. The 14-year-old victim was rushed to the hospital and at last check still in critical condition. And now the father is in police custody awaiting charges. Let's bring in Steve Garagiola, who's live at Detroit Police Headquarters. Steve?
Yeah, kids and guns, the violence. You know, when you see a tragedy like this, I think it's in our human nature to say, why did this happen? Who's the bad guy in this story? And you know, there really is no bad guy in this story. There are only bad choices, bad decisions that have devastated this family. The ages change, but the story is familiar. In this case, a 10-year-old boy accidentally shoots his 14-year-old brother with a shotgun, locked and loaded, unsecured in a closet.
The question is, how many times do we have to keep going through the same routine?
The 14-year-old remains hospitalized in critical condition. The boy's father is in police custody.
We're holding the father right now on a child abuse charge.
This afternoon, police submitted their report to the prosecutor's office. Police believe the negligence falls on the father.
The gun did not belong to the father, but the father brought the gun into the home. We've been able to determine that, so certainly that's why we have him in our custody right now.
Chief Craig has long been a strong supporter of the right to own a gun.
But that includes responsible gun ownership, and part of responsible gun ownership is locking up weapons, securing them in your home so that children can't access them.
Yeah, the deputy chief really poses the pertinent question here. How many times do we have to keep doing this? The bottom line is, if you do own a firearm, secure it, lock it up so that kids can't get to it. The deputy chief tells me that they do expect to hear in the morning from the prosecutors about charges against the father. Kimberly, Devin, back to you.
And Steve, what about the 10-year-old? What are we hearing about him?
Yeah, well, clearly there was no malice intended here. This was not intentional.
Yeah.
It was a horrible accident. So he was for a while in protective services last night, but he has now been placed with other family members and clearly just getting some counseling.
Yeah. All right, Steve. Kim?
A home invasion turns deadly this morning when an armed man burst into this house on Detroit's west side. It happened on Wabash in the area of Grand River and Martin Luther King Boulevard. And as our Coco McAvoy shows us, the intruder knew who he was after, and the people inside were ready for him.
The shooting happened here on Detroit's west side, and neighbors say it all started after a 21-year-old man was stalking his ex-girlfriend here at this apartment, broke in this morning, and was shot multiple times in the chest by the woman's brother.
I called my neighbor and we came out to find out that someone was deceased, and we was hoping that it wasn't the young lady, and we found out that it was him.
Neighbors who didn't want to be identified are talking about a 21-year-old man who was shot and killed after police say he broke into his ex-girlfriend's apartment armed with a gun. A deadly shooting that comes after months of domestic violence.
He come over and he's beat on the door, put the car up to the garage, trying to get into her home. It's just a lot of disturbing the neighbors.
This morning, neighbors say it happened again.
One of my neighbors says she heard around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, he was out here beating on the door.
And the week before, she says the ex-boyfriend kicked the woman's garage door and threw stuff at the back window, leaving behind some damage.
We did one day walk up to her and ask her, was she okay and everything, and she basically told us, she wasn't trying to, be in a relationship with him anymore.
Neighbors say it's an unfortunate outcome in a domestic violence case that's been going on for too long.
It's sad that, considering that she just moved in and this had to happen, but at the same time, you have to protect yourself.
And there's no word yet on whether or not the brother will face any charges. On Detroit's west side, I'm Coco McAvoy, Local 4.
Hey, Coco, and the brother and the ex-boyfriend were armed. During the incident, police recovered both weapons. All right, time now for a Local 4 update. 2 people in police custody after a high-speed crash Monday kills a man on Detroit's east side.
72-year-old victim was out running errands when a woman hit his pickup truck near Woodward and State Fair. That 51-year-old driver is in custody, but remains in the hospital, and that's the same situation with her 32-year-old passenger. Absolutely beautiful day for this first day of spring, but quickly changing.
I don't want it to change, but Ben's here now as temperatures dropping fast, Ben.
They are going to be, that's right, Kim. But you know, we had to wait for our first full day of spring. The half day didn't count. It was sort of a false start, but we do have the 50s out there right now. Everything's shaded in green, but you can see that area has been getting smaller and smaller through the hours, even though this is an improvement by 10, almost 15 degrees warmer, especially on the east side compared to yesterday at this time. Those numbers dropping like a rock tonight. We'll go from the 50s here at 6 o'clock to temperatures below freezing at midnight. That's a swing of more than 20 degrees in 6 hours. Temperature, or I should say sky conditions, are going to be mainly clear, but we will be talking about a very frigid start with wind chills in single digits. That's in your 4-zone forecast. Coming up, guys.
Oh, all right, Ben. Well, faith leaders pressed Dan Gilbert today in Detroit over a controversial issue happening in Cleveland. Leaders at Greater Cleveland Congregations and Detroit Regional Interfaith Voice for Equity gathered outside Gilbert's office downtown. They believe the Quicken Loans Arena deal in Cleveland is not fair. They called on Gilbert to invest in Ohio neighborhoods if he wants to use public money to fund renovations at the so-called Q. Gilbert is currently asking for a $160 million public subsidy there. The Detroit Land Bank executive director is stepping down.
Carrie LaJuan Monroe is leaving the Land Bank for a private development and consulting role. LaJuan Monroe joined the Detroit Land Bank in 2014. She was appointed executive director in December of 2015. A nationwide search will be conducted for a replacement. Well, we now know what happened to a plane carrying the University of Michigan men's basketball team moments before it crashed. A preliminary report by the National Transportation Safety Board confirms what local officials said happened on March 8th. A quote-unquote rejected takeoff led to the incident during the major windstorm that caused widespread power outages.
Well, let's move to the team that was inside that plane. Come Thursday night, Michigan fans will flood the Sprint Center in Kansas City as they host the Sweet 16 matchup between the Wolverines and the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, here with Bernie now. We said yesterday we're kind of moving past the whole plane incident and laser focused on the next round here.
And here you go, bringing it up again.
I tried to cover it up a little bit there.
Well, one thing.
The FAA stepped in. What can
That's
you do?
right.
You know?
Yeah. Buzz kills. Well, anyway, one thing John Beilein really believes in is being in the moment, not looking too far ahead or looking back and letting things linger. We've got highlights. You can be sure that as he and his team walked off the court in Indianapolis on Sunday, Beilein and the players were happy, but they're also aware the journey continues, and it's very important to be in the moment as they will be in practice all week. They face an Oregon team that's seeded third, but they lost its big man, Chris Boucher, in the Big 12 tournament. Today, the Wolverines met the media for the first time since eliminating Louisville. Jamie Edmonds has more from Ann Arbor.
Bernie, you can't get this far in the tournament without a team gelling, but the Michigan players say there's something extra going on here, an X factor, if you will, and man, they're having a good time.
I'm having a lot of fun. None of us want it to end, especially being a senior. You never know when you're going to have your last game, so I'm just trying to cherish every moment of it.
It's awesome, something that I will never forget in my entire life, just the way we connected right now as a group.
But it's not all fun and games. Yesterday, the Wolverines watched film of their game against Louisville for lessons. Today, it's all about preparing for Oregon.
A really talented team, very, very talented. I've been watching Dylan Brooks since he was playing with the Ontario teams earlier.
They play small ball, similar to what we do. They're really good in transition. They make a lot of threes, so we're going to have to limit those.
But here's the thing about this Michigan team. Each game, going back 6 this postseason, they faced different challenges and every time stepped up.
Oregon papers are saying you guys have an X factor that's hard to prepare for. Do you agree with that, and what is that?
I don't know. I think that's what's so unique about this team. We don't really know who it's going to be that particular night offensively, but we do know the effort's going to be there regardless, and that's what makes it so dynamic.
The phrase they were talking about on Sunday, why not us? Wolverines leave tonight for Kansas City. No word yet if John Beilein will bring any kind of super soaker on board. At the Chrysler Center, Jamie Edmonds, Local 4.
I think he's going to need 2 of them, one for Thursday, and then if everything works out, beating Kansas to get to the Final Four.
Beating who?
Huh? I'm sorry, Kansas. Sorry, I mispronounced it. Michigan, Oregon.
Kansas past Purdue, at least.
Michigan, or I'm begging for Kansas to beat Purdue. Oh, please. Let me just say this. Friday will not be pretty here. Michigan, Oregon is Thursday night, 7 or 9, tip-off at Kansas City, Michigan, favored by a point.
You know, we talk so much about Tom Izzo being such a great tournament coach. John Beilein has got this figured out, too.
No question. Absolutely. He really is I've spoken to him at length about this. Being in the moment, being right now, being present. He is a firm believer in that. He really
impressive.
Feels it.
Good stuff.
All right, Bernie. Well, it's the Metro Detroit landmark that withstood the test of time until now.
New tonight, the beloved restaurant reduced to rubble, and the big plans for what's going in its place.
Also, is the state of Michigan ready to do away with daylight savings time? Ahead here at 5, the key hearing today that might put an end to springing forward and falling back.
Oh boy. But first, an incredible story of survival, how a very smart rescue dog helped save a toddler's life up in the UP. That's coming up next.
The murder. New at 6.
Breaking with his party, Governor Snyder fighting against the Republican health care bill. At 6, the reason he is sending out letters pushing for a no vote.
Plus, one of the men facing charges in the Victory in Human Trafficking case appears in federal court. New at 6, what police say his role at the motel was and what he agreed to today.
Well, now an incredible story of survival of a small child and an amazing rescue emerging up in the UP.
It happened when that toddler was found naked in a ditch, and the child has a shelter dog to thank. Evrod Cassimy shows us how it all went down.
Thanks, guys. The dog found the toddler last Friday morning in a ditch in Rapid River. That's near Escanaba in the UP. And tonight, that child and another have been removed from the home and placed with Child Protective Services. It happened just after 11 Friday morning when Delta County Sheriff's deputies responded to a call about a child found by a dog naked but alive in a ditch in Rapid River. He was taken to a home nearby to get warm and wait for police to arrive. The parents were eventually located, but the child was removed from the home by Child Protective Services.
The child is fine and is well and is in good hands as we speak. There was one other child that was located in the home, and that child was removed as well. And to my knowledge, both those children are together in a foster care type home.
Delta County Prosecutor Phil Strom says the investigation into what really happened is just getting started.
We are waiting for the full police report, the full investigation to unfold. We're thankful that we had a concerned citizen member find the child.
The child was found by a dog that belongs to a neighboring family. His dog, whose name is Peanuts, alerted the owner just in time, possibly saving that child's life. And there's still no word yet why the child didn't have any clothes on and how he was able to get outside. Evrod Cassimy, Local 4.
Well, compounding matters. A quick check shows the high temperature last Friday in Rapid River was just 35 degrees, but an amazing story.
Kind of a classic Lassie story, isn't it?
Yeah, how about Peanut
Pretty
in this
great,
case?
Peanut, I know. All right. Well, debate over a bill that would end daylight saving time in Michigan is underway in Lansing. The House Commerce and Trade Committee held a hearing today on the proposal. Lawmakers heard from a time change expert who talked about the way that daylight saving time negatively impacts people. Expert testified that losing just that extra hour of sleep can lead to an uptick in heart attacks, suicide, depression, car crashes. The bill is being proposed by State Rep Pete Lucido of Macomb County.
And those individuals that are affected said, I'd like to stay on one time. I don't know why we keep changing. It doesn't affect anything but me and my family. And those are the people I heard from.
Long way to go here. We got to see if the bill makes it out of committee first and makes it way to the House floor for a vote.
I will tell you, as someone who lived in Indiana,
yes,
you got to make sure that everybody else does it too, or you're in a world of hurt.
Kind of a mess in some spots, isn't it? Yeah. Crazy.
But we have seen our numbers go down. Well, we will tonight. Look at where we're at right now. We have the clouds moving in, but temperatures still hanging on to the 50s. The thing that's doing it for us is this front. It is bringing some lake effect snow to the north side of the state. Some of that's coming in off the lake there, but I don't think it's going to make it much further south. but the cold air is definitely coming our direction. In fact, we're still in 53 right now, 21 in Marquette, 33 in Alpena. And by the time we finish out tonight, even though we're going to see low temperatures, even lower than that, our wind chills will be the big story. And we'll look at that in your 4-zone forecast coming up in a few minutes. So that sunshine was nice while we had it, but clouds are out now. 53, mostly cloudy reported at Metro. We've got a west wind at 18. Things have been pretty gusty out there. We've seen those winds peak just briefly at 30 miles an hour plus in some spots, and those are starting to relax a little bit. But once we get into tonight, skies are going to break up a little bit more than what we have out there right now. The only thing that we're going to be watching, you can see this very small little band of snow that's starting to show up right along the Lake Huron shoreline. It's just going to brush possibly Sand Lake and St. Clair counties. This is early tomorrow morning. Anything that shows up is going to be gone shortly after the sun comes up. And then by 10 o'clock, most of us are just going to be under sunshine through the rest of the day, but it is going to be chilly. High pressure and control for 2 days. Once we get into Friday, rain comes in early Friday, and this boundary is pretty much going to set up shop throughout much of the area for Saturday and Sunday. So we've got a pretty wet weekend ahead of us with Saturday and Sunday. Not looking like complete washouts, but maybe one of those weekends where you want to find things to do indoors, despite the temperatures. 7 will be that wind chill tomorrow in West Bloomfield. 9 in Troy, barely hanging on double digits for wind chills in the city and downriver. South zone for wind chills tomorrow morning, lots of single digits to begin, especially out in Lenawee County. 8 and 9 above 0. West zone almost exclusively below or into those single digits. One spot here in Canton likely holding on to 10 above. And in our north zone, we're seeing single digits here as well as we start out tomorrow morning. Again, those air temperatures will be closer to 20 and teens in some spots, but it's that wind chill that'll make all the difference. 20 degrees on the thermometer in the morning, 36 is where we're going in the afternoon, so not much of an improvement. We will see a lot of sunshine tomorrow. Skies mostly sunny through the day, and our 7-day forecast shows that we will get back to the 60s, or I should say get there on Friday. 62 is what we're going to be seeing. That chance of rain is going to be coming early in the day, probably before the sun comes up, so most of Friday is looking dry. Not so much for Saturday and Sunday. A lot of clouds around and good chances of showers, but temperature-wise, it's going to be a lot better than what we're doing tomorrow.
All right, we got some breaking news we need to get to. It's from Southwest Detroit, and that is where someone has fired shots at some bailiffs. You know, the very familiar court officers. This is in the area of Wheelock and West Lafayette Boulevard. Officers were serving an eviction notice at a home, and someone started shooting. No one hurt, as far as we know, but right now police are searching for whoever it was who fired those shots. Updates are forthcoming. Doc?
Well, some 86 million Americans have prediabetes, and many of them have no idea. I'm Dr. Frank McGeorge, coming up, how to find out if you're affected and the best way to stop prediabetes from becoming diabetes.
Hey, Doc, but first, an up-close look at the damage after a massive apartment fire spreads to surrounding homes in Kansas. That story and more next.
No one wants to talk about it, but planning for your golden years can be confusing and complicated. That's where Help Me Hank comes in. How your parents could interfere with your financial plan if you don't include them. Tomorrow, starting at 5.
Tonight we're getting our first look at the aftermath of that massive apartment fire in Kansas that spread to a lot of neighboring homes.
Yeah, we first told you about this story yesterday as breaking news on Local 4 News at 5. Take a look here. This is aerial video that shows the collapsed, charred remains of the 4-story apartment building in Overland Park, Kansas, after an 8-alarm fire destroyed it. This happened Monday afternoon. Due to the embers and intense heat, the fire spread to 22 nearby homes that are now damaged. Investigators have not said what sparked the original fire there. It's just a mess.
It sure is.
Well, today was a big day for 20 Michigan charities.
More than $1 million was given to them from the money donated at last December's Mitch Albom Say Detroit Radiothon. And Mitch talked a little about the Radiothon's success.
This is always a great day for us, and it continues to be. Now it's a tradition. The only thing better than having a great day is having a great day as a tradition. We are blessed to have amazing support for our charities throughout the course of the year, and particularly on one day of the year in special, and that is our Radiothon. And last year, for the second year in a row, we were able to exceed $1 million.
Great stuff. Say Detroit, founded in 2006. The organization's goal is to help improve the lives of Detroit's neediest citizens, and that's become a great success story, hasn't it?
We're glad that we could be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, we were.
All right, a sad update to pass along to you tonight. Last week, we brought you the story of Frank Gregory. He's the 20-year veteran Detroit police officer who battled a rare type of cancer. Well, today we got word that Frank lost that battle with cancer. Our thoughts and prayers are with his 2 daughters, his family, and the 12th precinct. Frank Gregory was 46 years old. We'll be right back.
New at 5:30.
If you've ever had to buy textbooks in college, you know they can cost a small fortune. Well, now a new app has been created that could save you or your student big money. We'll tell you all about it in my Help Me Hank report.
Will Republicans have the votes to repeal Obamacare this week? Well, the president is certainly giving it his best shot on Capitol Hill. I'm Blaine Alexander. I'll have all the latest coming up from Washington.
Well, it's demolition day here in downtown Birmingham.
That happened to Hogan's. It happened to Fox and Hounds. It happened here.
So what is the history of this place and why are people so curious about its passage? We'll let you know ahead.
Next week, live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5:30 starts now.
It's the end of the road for a longtime Birmingham business. Peabody's Restaurant, closed since last year, fell to the wrecking ball today to make way for a new development.
So many memories made at that restaurant. It is sad to see it go, but things are changing. Peabody's Restaurant did close since last year, and then it fell to the wrecking ball today.
Let's check in with Rod Maloney, who's been following not just what's happened today, but what's to come. Rod?
Back in the mid-1940s, all of this area here wasn't like you see it today. It was mostly fruit orchards. And if you have a fruit orchard, you got to sell the fruit. So this is where they did it. But then they turned it into a restaurant.
Peabody's The Restaurant opened in 1975. The daughters of the fruit stand owner decided to cook and sell their wares and did so very successfully. Just ask the regulars like Greg Blass, who reminisced about the great food.
Swiss onion. Soup.
The Peabody sisters decided it was time to retire and sold the place last year. So today's demolition attracted photographers and those feeling forlorn and nostalgic about tradition being reduced to splinters.
It was like a fraternity, you know, where everybody knew everybody. It was casual. The owners were always there. It didn't seem like a business to us.
John Ray of Clarkston remembers Peabody's as his favorite dream cruise hangout.
You know, have a nice meal and just look out and watch all the classic cars go by. And then years before that, just meeting friends here for some good meal and some good drinks.
And so time marches on and the city skyline changes. The replacement building is going to rise up 5 stories with apartments, office space, and shops.
You know, there's a side of you that says, yeah, it's kind of sad to see an icon like Peabody's leave, but on the other hand, you know, life goes on.
Now, one of the guys that was out there with his cell phone getting video today was a guy who told me that his dad would frequent the restaurant 3 or 4 times a week when he was working, but he's retired now living in Florida. So he said, hey, I wasn't a big fan. He said, but my dad was, so I wanted to make sure I got video for him and shipped it to him down in Florida. Back to you.
So, Rod, when might we see the new building go up?
It's looking like sometime like late next year. It's going to be a large building, going to take some time. So they figure they'll start building here before too long in the next month or so, but it'll probably take about 18 months to wrap it up.
Big shoes to fill, that's for sure. All right, Rod. Well, despite hundreds of tips to police, the search continues. 15-year-old Tennessee teenager Elizabeth Thomas and the former high school teacher who police say abducted her.
50-year-old Tad Cummins and Thomas have been missing now for more than a week. Investigators said the two vanished after a student reported seeing them kissing. Police believe Thomas is in imminent danger, but so far, more than 450 tips have failed to produce sightings of the teen and teacher. A new push for answers tonight after a father of 5 is killed by a hit-and-run driver. Tyrone Turner was killed by a hit-and-run driver on February 6th, a little after 4:30 in the morning. It happened in the 16,000 block of Blackstone between Vern and Puritan. That's on the city's west side. His family gathered this afternoon pleading for the person responsible to please come forward.
Whoever you are, you know who you are. Just please come forward. Anybody that know his last whereabouts, who's seen him walk in any stores, anywhere that he was near, just please come forward.
Crime Stoppers is asking for anonymous tips and offering a cash reward of up to $2,500 for information leading to an arrest.
To another very busy day in Washington. First, the Congressional Black Caucus has confirmed they're going to meet with President Trump at the White House. Meantime, the president was on Capitol Hill today to drum up support for the GOP health care overhaul. The big question now is if they've got the votes. Blaine Alexander is there following it for us tonight. Blaine?
Well, Devin, Republicans call this their best shot at repealing Obamacare, and it is certainly a big test for the president, who campaigned hard on this promise. Today on Capitol Hill, President Trump, the salesman, working behind closed doors to get House Republicans on board with the GOP health care plan.
We had a great meeting, and I think we're going to get a winner vote.
2 days ahead of that crucial vote, a firm message from the president to his own party.
And the message was, if we don't get this done, we're going to lose the House and the Senate next year. It was that blunt.
And even personal. Here, a light moment as the president jokingly calls out at least one member, Mark Meadows of North Carolina, a vocal opponent still not convinced.
I serve at the pleasure of the people of Western North Carolina. And when you serve at their pleasure, it's only those 750,000 people that can send you home.
Overnight, leaders made changes to the GOP bill, hoping to win conservative support, repeal Obamacare taxes this year instead of next, and give states more flexibility on Medicaid. As he left Capitol Hill,
President Trump, what's your response to the FBI investigating campaign ties to Russia?
The president remained notably silent on Monday's bombshell from FBI Director James Comey, revealing the FBI is investigating possible links between the Trump campaign and Russia. The White House once again shooting down those allegations.
They continue to see that there is nothing there. Every single person who has been briefed, who has come out and publicly talked about it.
An investigation that started in July and could stretch for years to come. And Thursday's health care vote comes 7 years to the day since Obamacare was signed into law. In Washington, Blaine Alexander, Local 4.
The confirmation process continues for President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Neil Gorsuch. Questions during day 2 of the proceedings turned pointed at times. Democrats challenging his rulings as a district judge, while also asking repeatedly about how he would deal with President Trump and the White House. Gorsuch refused to comment on cases that could come before the court, calling that, quote, grossly improper. He also told lawmakers the politics of the issues should never come into play.
That there's no such thing as a Republican judge or a Democratic judge. We just have judges in this country.
If confirmed, Gorsuch would be the youngest jurist on the Supreme Court and for decades could rule on a number of controversial issues, including civil rights, abortion, gun control, as well as immigration. In good health tonight, about 29 million Americans have diabetes, but another 86 million have a condition called prediabetes.
Wow. Our Dr. Frank McGeorge here to explain exactly what that means and how to help prevent prediabetes from becoming current diabetes.
Exactly, Karen and Devin. You know, prediabetes basically means that your blood sugar level is higher than normal, but not quite high enough to be considered type 2 diabetes. It's really a red flag that you need to make changes. Here's the problem, though. 1 in 3 people with prediabetes, they have no idea they have it. If you have prediabetes, the long-term damage to your heart, blood vessels, and kidneys may already be underway, but it starts silently.
So unless you're going to regular checkups and getting, your blood work done, you probably feel fine.
Undiagnosed insulin-dependent diabetes can cause rapid weight loss, blurred vision, or leave you feeling thirsty all the time. But prediabetes is generally caught with a blood test.
Starting at age 45, we should be screening every 3 years for type 2 diabetes. However, some people are at risk even earlier than that.
You're more likely to have prediabetes if you're overweight, have a family member with diabetes, are physically inactive, had diabetes during pregnancy, or gave birth to a baby that weighed 9 pounds or more. Studies find losing weight is more effective than medication at reducing your risk. If you're overweight, try to reduce your body weight by 5 to 7%.
Losing weight can really be beneficial in preventing the onset or delaying the onset of diabetes for many years.
Other ways to prevent prediabetes from becoming diabetes: exercise at least 30 minutes 5 times a week and cut back on sugary drinks. Try to make vegetables 50% of each meal and increase your fiber intake. Now, according to the CDC, up to 30% of people with prediabetes progress to diabetes within 5 years. If you're over 45, get your blood sugar checked, and if it's not normal, it's actually time to get serious about making changes.
In fact, your blood sugar level is more important, you were saying, than maybe all those other list of things. That's the definitive.
Exactly, and even beyond your blood sugar level, there's a hemoglobin A1C test, which measures how long your blood sugar may have been elevated. And if your hemoglobin A1C is elevated, that's even a better indicator that you may have had a high blood sugar and just not known it.
So if you're going in for your checkup, then you just ask for a diabetes
Exactly,
test.
or ask your doctor to basically check for prediabetes, and hopefully they'll have an idea of what to look for.
All right, thanks, Doc.
Let's get back to the breaking news. We remain on the scene in southwest Detroit where shots have been fired at some bailiffs. This is in a neighborhood near West Lafayette and Wheelock. They were serving an eviction notice, and someone inside the house fired shots. The last few minutes, we've learned that the shooter then ran outside and apparently is right now hiding in a van. So that is why you see the scene here. Police have the area blocked off. They're working to take that man into custody. We'll continue watching this breaking news situation and bring you updates as soon as they come in to us. All right, we bring Ben back in now to talk about something that sounds like a pretty good premise for a movie.
Yes, but it's not fiction, it is fact, and it's about controlling the weather.
Yeah, this is called cloud seeding. This has actually been around for decades. You probably heard about it.
Sure.
But it may actually be working in part of the U.S. right now, out in Santa Barbara, California, as a matter of fact. This is how it works. Planes fly into the clouds and they fire these flares that are filled with silver iodide. Those act like little water magnets for water vapor to make raindrops a lot quicker. Now, you may recall up until this winter, California was in a historic drought. So researchers have been trying this technique since the 60s to squeeze some additional rainfall from the sky. And apparently, at least over Santa Barbara County, lake levels are up in 2 important lakes.
Lake Twitchell was empty. It's at about 36% now. Lake Kachuma is at about 50%.
Good news. The not so good news is the legal part of this. I mean, out in the West, if you've been following some of these water restrictions, they've been fighting over who owns water rights for rivers for a while. Right. Now it looks like we may start fighting over who owns the water in the sky if this starts to work, because downstream you may be robbing somebody.
You take somebody's cloud.
Right. The cloud would have been moving in that direction.
Exactly right.
How's that for an ethical debate?
Well, the lawyers are going to get rich, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Fascinating.
Thank you, Ben.
Apple surprises the tech world and releases a brand new iPhone, but not what you might think.
New tonight, we've got your first look and what makes this phone so different.
Also, they couldn't get it through the front door, so they had to get creative. A jewelry heist caught on tape got pretty wild. How these guys got in ahead at 5.
It's a brand new app, and it could save college kids big money. In fact, it was developed here locally. We'll show you how you can cash in my Help Me Hank report.
On Jeopardy! New at 6.
We know sleep can affect our moods, but the link might be stronger than we imagined. Wait until you hear who a new study says can feel like after a good night's slumber.
Also, you'll learn why you could soon be safer and feel safer using rideshare services like Uber and Lyft in the state of Michigan. That's coming up at 6.
Okay, so ask any college student, they will tell you textbooks are not cheap. For example, take the book, The Art of Public Speaking, for instance. For communication students, they're going to have to pay $193 for that. Also, another popular book, we're talking about biology, textbooks, Campbell Biology. That'll set you back $259. But now there is a new app helping to make textbooks cheaper, and it was developed by 2 local students. Consumer investigator Hank Winchester shows us how it works.
College textbooks, we all know they can cost a small fortune to buy, and then when you sell them back to the bookstore, you often don't get very much. But now that could soon be changing. Walk into almost any college bookstore and the sticker shock can be overwhelming. Books costing hundreds of dollars. It's something students at Wayne State know all about.
But I spend around like $400 to $500 a semester.
Probably about $200.
just depending. Usually I buy about half of them from the bookstore here and half online.
But now technology may be offering a new, more affordable way for you to buy and sell textbooks.
There are people who want your book that will pay you more for that. And that's what it's all about, connecting people who have something that other people need to people who want what they have.
Meet Sean Fair Jr. and Daryl Lewis, two college students who've been there, done that, spending big money on books, making little when they sell them back.
You can just chat with somebody, form a connection, and get the book right then and there.
They've developed an app called BookCycle. It's available on the App Store and Google Play Store. The idea is simple. Let those who have the app buy, sell, and trade college books to one another, taking the bookstore right out of the equation.
You can go in, type whatever you want, and you'll always get results because you're partnered with Amazon.
Sean and Daryl are both students at Kalamazoo College, but Metro Detroit natives. They've spent a lot of time and money working to put this together. The big winners are the students, but they say it's much more than just about saving money. It can also be a way for kids to connect at college.
You can create a new friend, somebody that you might not even talk to if you hadn't, used BookCycle and tried to sell or buy a book. Really it's just, giving people a platform to come together.
We're going to put more information about how this app works and all the information you need to know to download it. You'll find it on the consumer page of our website, clickondetroit.com. I'm Hank Winchester. Help me, Hank.
All right, thank you, Hank. The app is free and ready to be downloaded both from the App Store or Google Play. Apple announced new product releases. One is a lower priced iPad with a 9.7-inch screen, which will sell for $329.
And at the same time, Apple unveiled special editions of its iPhones. These are red versions of the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus models, and they help raise money for the fight against HIV and AIDS. Over the past 10 years, special red Apple products have now raised $120 million for AIDS research.